What is one element of the 1800s that you wish you could have today? Whether it's...
Quills.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They still
Didn't see that
exist,
coming.
but I feel like how fun would it be if everyone just in cafes, in meetings, like, with, like ridiculous quills.
The premise is a young girl repressed by her family strikes out on her own to find out who she is, and in the process of it writes one of the best novels ever written, Wuthering Heights. There's so many different things, like, you know, like you take the mask scene. The Brontes did have a mask, and the father used to make the kids put the mask on and ask them questions. And that just sparked my imagination, and in terms of the themes that I was exploring. And I think the thing about Emily is that she's actually got this amazing sense of power about her. So I didn't want to limit the story just by saying, then she did this, then she did this, you know, just kind of expand it out.
A lot of it is factual. Like a lot of it is so it's taking those elements and then running with them to a certain extent.
Yeah, maybe heightening them.
Exactly,
or...
It's nice to blur the lines, isn't it?
Yes.
I think otherwise it's too safe. And I learnt as we were going along is that opening up and letting your imagination run wild. The whole point of this, one of the points of this film is we're talking about creativity and we're talking about pushing down any kind of obstacle that you have in your life, and specifically at that time that these sisters experienced. I think that's what's so interesting, is finding the intricacies between reality and fiction and imagination and the societal construct within which you live. It's like that's you flirt with all those boundaries the whole way through.
I really want this film to speak to young people and like to mix up the form with the music, with the editing, with character.
It is like it's an incredible piece of literature. It is sort of, you know, there's a reason why it's still, you know, so prevalent in our sort of society and culture today. You know, all these years later.
There's a fascination for them.
Yeah,
everywhere.
there's such a general knowledge of this family and specifically the work of this family.
What do you want to do?
Do you think I could be a writer? I have lots of stories.
Because it's only one book and it's the only piece really that we have access to, appropriately for this film as well, you're trying to find what is that? What's the meaning behind this? And what was she trying to say? And what was she trying to do? And who was she? And so I think in that sense, the film kind of mirrors our understanding and our experience of Wuthering Heights. It should just be experienced, I think, as a book and read, as opposed to overly analysed. And it's so fun playing someone who has such a rich inner life, because you know, she's the quiet observer on the side and she absorbs a lot from her surroundings, and she kind of watches people evolve around her, and she's trying to figure out her place in that whole sphere. So that side of things is really interesting, but also just fleshing her out and figuring out, again, as we go along and trying to understand her little idiosyncrasies and her mannerisms and what kind of makes her tick.
I think what was interesting for me editing the film and putting it together after we'd shot everything is just the complexity of who she was. And a lot of that is actually just, you know, watching your performance as well.
Where we were shooting, we shot out in Yorkshire, and the most incredible, and when they talk about the Yorkshire moors and they say it's haunting and it's moving, and we got to shoot out, I mean, the locations, people found this house in the middle of nowhere, and they did it up. And so I think Francis captures it so beautifully in the film, the starkness of that.
Yeah, you have to confront that.
And the quietness and the...
And so these characters are then just left with themselves and their thoughts and the wind and the rain and all of that.
Hence
kind
rich novels and poems and
get written.